Bulls Nation, the draft is within our grasp, ladies and gentlemen. You could feel it in a couple of hours. Our future will be decided, and it's a very exciting time to be a Chicago Bulls fan. But today's video is going to be about that 18th overall pick. The last video I'll probably talk about before the NBA draft in relation to that 18th overall pick. I want to talk about my top 5 candidates that the Chicago Bulls could draft within that 18th overall pick. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to keep the 18th overall pick. We may very much trade that pick. We may very much keep that pick. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a video where if we do keep this 18th overall pick, these are the 5 choices that I would like the Chicago Bulls to select with that 18th overall pick based on the people I've talked about. I'm not going to mention the people I haven't talked about. I know a lot of them probably would be very good candidates with the 18th overall pick, but I personally just haven't been able to get around to talking about them. So these are going to be the players that I have talked about. And also, I just want to, show my excitement towards what I feel like could be a very, very, very big decision the Chicago Bulls will have to make. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show. Turn notifications on and let me know in the comments below your top 5 candidates for the 18th overall pick and the, addition the Chicago Bulls can make. Is it a center? Is it a forward? Is it a guard? There are so many opportunities. There are so many, ways that the Chicago Bulls can look at this NBA draft. Even just by keeping the pick, there are so many ways we can dissect what we need and what's the best available. But also, we could very much decide to, throw all of the, that draft pick conversations away and trade that pick for something valuable as well. Very, very important decision to make. I'm really, really excited for the next couple of hours. Please, I must say, be patient, of course, and let's hope AK makes some good decisions on draft night, ladies and gentlemen. But let's talk about my top 5 candidates. Starting at number 5, we've got Nikola Jovic, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you might look at this player and say he doesn't necessarily fit a lot of the needs that the Chicago Bulls have. But I think out of all the players that we will be discussing in this video, I think he has one of the best potential in the NBA draft. Now, I'm not sure where he's actually ranked to go at this point in time. I've heard the Denver Nuggets, funnily enough, are very interested in a guy like Nikola Jovic. But if the Chicago Bulls see potential in this player, I'd be more than happy to give him an opportunity on the Chicago Bulls team. As much as it is drafting about a need, it's also about the future. And the future is very important because we do have a couple of players that are getting on the older side, ladies and gentlemen. So having someone that could also be a future, superstar player, which he has the caliber to be. I'm not saying that he's going to be that, but potential is very important. And it's a risky game, development is. But if you select the right player with the right attitude, the right skill set, the right sort of ability, and he ends up becoming what we want him to become, then I think Nikola Jovic is one of the best out there in my opinion, which is why he is my number 5 option in terms of the NBA draft. It's a very, very interesting player. One of the players that I have talked about at length, and I'm excited. But ultimately, he doesn't fit all the needs that we have, which is why he's only number 5 and not a little bit higher. But the potential is still there, and he has one of the best potentials out of all the players that I will be talking about today. Number 4 is EJ Liddell, ladies and gentlemen. Now, it is no secret that the Chicago Bulls have done multiple workouts and interviews with EJ Liddell, and he's obviously a fan favorite, in my opinion, amongst the Chicago Bulls fans. Again, EJ Liddell is one of those players that I feel like is a very old school type player. I think his post presence is truly sensational. I think he has the ability to beat a defender one-on-one. I also think he has the ability to shoot over defenders from the mid-range. He does have that weakness at the 3-point line, in my opinion, and that needs to be worked on at the NBA level. His help defense is absolutely tremendous and one of the biggest attributes that we have towards him. I've always said, as much as we need paint defenders and rim protectors, we also need really elite help defenders, and I think EJ Liddell can bring that to the Chicago Bulls. Now, ultimately, he's number 4 on this list because I feel like the players that are simply ahead of him at the moment are probably better than him right now, and could potentially be better for him long term. But there's no doubt about it that EJ Liddell fits needs that the Chicago Bulls have, and he's one of my favorite players that I've talked about in relation to the NBA draft in its entirety. He is projected to go around our pick, I believe, as well. Could potentially fall all the way to the late first round as well, but there's no questioning that he fits a lot of our needs, and I do think he has a little bit of a skill set that we could use and benefit towards us as well, especially in the post. Even if Nikola Vucevic is not on this team or is on this team, we need Nikola Vucevic to be a post presence, but if he can't be that post presence, at least we'll have EJ Liddell there that could probably do that for the Chicago Bulls as well. That is why he's number 4 on my NBA top 5 draft prospects. We're getting into that top 3 now, ladies and gentlemen, and it's exciting top 3 to talk about today. And this is another player that I would love to talk about, and I would highly recommend the Chicago Bulls give a look at in terms of the 18th overall pick, because I really do feel like there's a good chance he's going to be there. He's a center, ladies and gentlemen, and his name is Walker Kessler. I would love Walker Kessler on this Chicago Bulls team. Now, ultimately, his weaknesses are very well known, and again, he's a 7'1", 7'2" type of player. He's not always going to be the most mobile player, and again, he's definitely going to have his limitations at the NBA level, but one of the best center prospects in my opinion in the draft is Walker Kessler. His rim protection at the college level over the last 2 years has been absolutely sensational, especially his last year in college when he averaged 4.6 blocks per game. Truly mesmerizing, truly unbelievable, and that's something we could definitely use off of this bench at the NBA level as well. He's not afraid to shoot a 3-point shot and definitely take it into the paint as well. That's not the most, I guess, powerful part of his game, but that's definitely a work in progress that could be developed over multiple years at the NBA. I think this guy screams potential at the center position, and again, he does bring paint dominance, he does bring paint defense as well, which is absolutely a necessity from that center position. He's also a player that could potentially save you a lot of money if you're looking to go and maybe get another backup center in free agency. If we sign Walker Kessler, you could try to put your focuses on different directions and different players to really go and help your team in the long term as well. He could potentially save you a lot of money from maybe a Mitchell Robinson or a Mo Bamba. And I still think we would go for Rudy Gobert even if Walker Kessler is on this team. But again, as a backup center option, I don't think you can go wrong with this type of player. I would love him on the Chicago Bulls. He's one of the better centers, in my opinion, in the draft. And I really hope the Chicago Bulls give him a look, because I think the potential there could very much be very valuable for us. Moving into number 2, ladies and gentlemen, we've got another forward, and his name is Tari Eason. Now, as soon as I made that video about Tari Eason, I really did fall in love with what this guy can really do. A defensive machine with a lot of good offensive potential as well. And I think he's going to go higher than what we actually need in terms of, I feel like this guy's going to go in the lottery, I've got to be honest. So I'm thinking he's a little bit out of our reach, but if he falls to the Chicago Bulls with the 18th overall pick in the NBA draft, I think this is one of those players you have to consider. No matter what the plan is, no matter who's actually there, if this guy falls to you, I think you throw the plans out the window and you go and get him, because I think he's a fantastic player, and I think he brings so much to the Chicago Bulls team. Without a shadow of a doubt, he's one of my favorite players I've talked about in relation to the NBA draft, and he's so diverse, and he's so, I guess, unique as well to be a very good two-way player like he is. I love this player, and I wish him the best no matter which team he goes to. But if he's on the Chicago Bulls team, I think he'd be very successful here. And number 1, I feel like many people already know who number 1 is. It's going to be Mark Williams, the very first player I talked about in relation to the NBA draft this year. Is the player that I think is number 1 suited for the Chicago Bulls. Again, in college, he was the best defensive player in college. I think he won the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Fantastic to see out of a player like Mark Williams. I think in terms of the modern day center, he suits that as well. He's very good at switching. He's very good at keeping up with guards. He runs the floor like a guard. He is fantastic in almost every sense of the word in relation to transition game and defense. Now, ultimately, compared to Walker Kessler, compared to almost every single other player in terms of the top 5 draft prospects, his offensive game still needs work. It's not defined, it's not perfect, it's not close to being perfect. He doesn't really have a mid-range game, he doesn't have a three-point game. Maybe that doesn't matter for a center, but again, in terms of the modern day center, I feel like that could definitely be something that's worth pursuing with Mark Williams in the future. But at the end of the day, his defensive capabilities is one of the strongest in the draft. And not to mention, I think he suits this team like a glove. I think having a transition player like Mark Williams would suit Lonzo Ball dramatically. I think an alley-oop threat like Mark Williams would suit all of our guards pretty much dramatically. I think him and Ayo could have a really fantastic connection in this team as well. I really think he suits this team the most. And he's probably going to be one of the best available if he falls to us. Now, the sad part is, it looks like he's probably not going to fall to us, ladies and gentlemen. I think he's also going to go in the lottery. But if he falls, it's very similar to Tyree Eason. If Mark Williams falls to you, I think any game plan that we have, any real strategy that we had on terms of selecting a player, you got to throw that out the window and you got to take this player, because I think he is an absolute stud and I think he's going to work very well in this league. You don't always need to shoot a three-point shot to be successful in this league. And I think Mark Williams will be a perfect example of that coming into the league. And maybe over time he can develop that three-point shot or develop that mid-range game. But the reality is, I think he's going to be a fantastic player in this league. He might start off the bench. He might not be the starter that we would want in the long term, but he could develop into that, in my opinion. And that is the most exciting thing about a player like Mark Williams. And that's my top 5. From 1 to 5, you can clearly see the direction that I'm going in. There are a couple of honorable mentions in there. Obviously, Barlow, someone that we've been very interested in as a Chicago Bulls team. You have to put him as an honorable mention. I think Kai Sotto is another one that could be an honorable mention as well. Has really climbed up the draft boards, ladies and gentlemen, and maybe he is someone that I think could go relatively earlier than most people expect. I think he could be a very good player for anybody that selects him. Jalen Williams is another one that I'm really excited about. And there are a couple of players that are expected to go in the second round that I think could be real sleepers as well. So if we end up getting a second round pick, I'm sure we'll be looking at some of those players that I've talked about and really just shine through how good in terms of impact this draft can be. We're not necessarily looking at superstar potential for all of these players. I don't think all of these players have superstar potential, but in terms of making an impact right away in the league, I think there are a bunch of players from the first round to the second round that can really do a job for a team. And that's what I'm excited about, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, I'm going to end this video here. Those are my top 5 draft prospects with a couple of honorable mentions on the side. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. Have a wonderful and safe day, Bulls Nation. Get excited for the NBA draft, and of course I will be there watching this NBA draft, watching what the Chicago Bulls will do, watching if we make a trade, watching if we end up signing a player in the NBA draft, knowing who we're selecting, and I'll make a video about it as well, so stay tuned for all of that. But with all that being said, have a wonderful and safe day. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for more. Take care and peace.